Boot sizing pisses me off for my entire life. It's my #1 thing. I hate it so much. Hello everyone, this is Troy Barmore from Stridewise.com. For those of you who don't know me, I occasionally come on here and co-host with Nick and talk about boots and bags and jackets and anything alike. And today I am talking about the very cool, very weird, kinda ugly, but also awesome Jim Green African Ranger boot. Despite an ever-increasing spotlight, Jim Green Footwear is a company that may not be familiar to many folks in the US. But in South Africa, where Jim Green Footwear is based, what started in the early 90s as a family shoemaking business has grown into one of the most well-known and well-respected bootmakers around. While they offer a fair number of different styles and designs generally aimed at more outdoor or work-focused needs, the most prominent and perhaps most unique boot is the African Ranger boot. Now, the African Ranger boot is what can be described as a field, work, or general utility boot entirely manufactured in South Africa of materials from South Africa. As the name suggests, the boot is made with the specific needs of African game rangers in mind. These rangers are tasked with the maintenance, preservation, and safeguarding of wildlife and wilderness preserves across over 26 countries in Africa. This includes everything from caring for the land itself and monitoring for invasive plant species, maintaining roads and trails, managing wildlife populations, and protecting wildlife from poachers. This is extremely important, difficult, dangerous, and often thankless work. The trouble is, up to 50% of African Rangers lack adequate funding and therefore need to buy their own boots and other gear, often having to equip themselves with sneakers or other materials that fall apart in mere weeks. That's where Jim Green comes in. Partnering with the Game Rangers Association of Africa, these boots were designed with the specific feedback provided by rangers about their needs and the owner of Jim Green Footwear's own experience during a 6-month stint as a ranger himself about 10 years ago. In order to better equip those game rangers who cannot afford to buy their own boots, Jim Green donates a pair of boots for every 10 pairs purchased. And as of the end of 2022, over 1,200 boots have been donated. Talking about the construction and materials. So Jim Green goes into pretty thorough detail on their website with regards to the materials and features of this boot, so definitely head over there and take a look. The African Ranger boots are made in a simple, utilitarian manner, minimizing unnecessary cost where possible without sacrificing the physical integrity of the boot. The uppers are made from a thick, full-grain cowhide and comes in a handful of different colors that includes this absolutely gorgeous buffalo hide, but that's sort of whenever they can get their hands on that hide. So if you see it and you like it, probably get them now because they may not be available for very long. Now, there are double-layered sections throughout reinforcing areas of heavy wear, like the eyelets and on the toe cap, which is in fact a genuine double-layered toe cap, thank God. There's a bit of padding around the opening of the boot, which brings a touch of comfort and a very impressive full gusseted tongue, something that you really don't often see in boots in that sort of sub $200 category. Now, the midsole is comprised of this sort of synthetic fibrous material, which has a similar sort of feel to hard veg tan leather, but is nowhere near as expensive. This midsole material also offers the benefit of being a little bit more durable and a little bit more flexible than the typical fiberboard that's usually used in less expensive boots. The sole is relatively soft but fairly grippy ridged wedge sole, which is attached via stitch-down construction that allows the boot to be resoled and offers superior resistance to water and the elements than something like a Goodyear welted boot. Inside the boot, you'll find a similar absence of frills with a fairly thin and cheap insole, a simple toe lining for a little bit of structure, and a thermal plastic heel counter, and an internal steel shank for a little bit more structure. Pretty much everything that you need and nothing you don't, for the most part. As for the comfort and fit, this is where the African Ranger really differentiates itself from other boots, apart from, of course, the price. The toe box is wide. I mean like really wide, to the point where it's downright bulbous in appearance. It's kind of weird and kind of ugly, but also kind of cool. You see, when you first put your foot into the boot, the sides of the vamp hold your foot nice and firmly, giving you a fair amount of sort of structure and security. But the toe box allows you to really stretch out. So over the course of a day, presumably hiking or trekking through the bush, this makes a huge difference in terms of how tired your feet get. It's one of a few polarizing design choices. Some people are going to like it, some people won't. The closest thing that I can compare it to is sort of like if you took a skate shoe and turned it into a boot. Again, kind of weird, but kind of awesome. And the result is a pretty comfortable boot once you break them in. As with all well-made boots, the stiffness, density, and quality of the leather is inversely proportional to how comfy they're gonna be at first. But with some regular wear, they break in just fine. No need for Band-Aids, thank God. The only caveat, of course, is the insert, which is kind of crap, to be honest with you. Like, admittedly, they have improved this since a couple of years ago, but still, it's a little thin, it's not that soft, it's not terribly supportive, it's just kind of cheap, you know? I mean, honestly, the first thing you should do when you buy these, and you should probably buy them, is go and get a better insert. You'll be happy to know that there is plenty of room to accommodate it inside. In terms of sizing, it's pretty straightforward. I'm a 9D on a Brannick, like exactly, and the 9 fits perfectly. No creeping doubt or weird pressure points or spots where I hope it'll break in to accommodate my toes or whatever. Just open boot, insert foot, done and done. I wish more companies were like this. At $179, there's really nothing to argue with here. Do I wish that they had a leather heel counter? Sure, that would make them more expensive. Do I wish there was a slightly more robust insole? Sure, again, more expensive. You get the idea. Any of the minor areas that I could highlight for improvement would inevitably increase the price over that $200 mark, which defeats the purpose of an accessibly priced utilitarian boot for real-world park rangers. Wrapping up with some pros and cons. Pros, solid build quality throughout. The grain of the leather, the stitching is all super clean. That fully gusseted tongue is awesome and super impressive. I mean, it goes all the way to the top of the boot. The fact that you can put the sole back on them, honestly, is the main differentiating point here between, like, why would you get these versus just a normal hiking boot, right, with synthetic materials. These are gonna break in, they're gonna mold to your foot as a good leather boot would, and when you wear through them, you can resole them and keep using them rather than needing to buy another boot, in a couple of years. Honestly, the price is a big pro. Under $200, there's just solid boot making here, man. It's a great value. And maybe most importantly here, the charitable mission that these boots support is incredibly important. I mean, it's just strong work. As far as the cons go, the polarizing look of the design, they're unlike anything else out there, and that naturally is going to really excite some customers, and it's just gonna turn others away. I found that insert to be pretty cheap. The low rise of the boot means there's a little bit less ankle support than you might want, depending on if that's a priority for you. But other than that, that's about it, And there's a frog. I dig the frog. It can be really difficult to not become completely jaded and untrusting of companies who claim to operate in an ethical fashion and contribute to a noble cause. I confess my own skepticism was palpable when Jim Green first reached out to us to review a pair of these boots. It wasn't until I actually got hands on these boots, took them out to the barn, mucked out a few trailers, put them through their paces as best as I can in New York, right? That I really got a feel for the fact that these boots are a great value. These are honest, well-made boots using South African materials built by South African hands and benefiting the custodians of an ever-exploited and imperiled wilderness. These are good boots built by good people, meant for those doing good work. Simply put, they're the real deal.